On the dark night of September 9th, 1980, a supersized cargo ship was battling the waves in the Pacific Ocean. Bigger than the Titanic and as tall as a 16-floor building, calling this ship a fortress of steel would not be wrong. But just a few hours later, there was no trace of it left. There was no radio signal, nor was any floating debris found in the sea. How did a ship weighing hundreds of thousands of tons suddenly disappear without a trace? For 20 years, the authorities told the world only one thing, that the ship had simply sunk. But when the father of a crew member started searching for the truth, what was hidden beneath the sea opened everyone's eyes. Welcome once again to the TV videos. Viewers, on the evening of September 9th, 1980, a massive cargo ship named Derbyshire was cutting through the deep waves of the Pacific Ocean heading towards Japan. But at the same time, another guest was approaching from the east. A typhoon named Orchid, a storm that was becoming more dangerous with every passing hour. MV Derbyshire had been on a continuous journey for the past 8 weeks. After loading 150,000 tons of iron from the iron mines of Canada, it crossed the Atlantic Ocean. It passed by the west coast of Africa and cutting through the waves of the Indian Ocean, was now nearing its final destination. There were 2 experienced crews on the ship, including engineers, helpers, and experts, who were now counting down the final hours of their journey. But perhaps fate had something else in store. The ship's captain, John Thiel, who had 20 years of experience, was responsible for this mission. His wife had also come from England to Japan, but now their reunion would remain nothing more than a dream. For several days, Captain Underhill had been relying on weather reports. He had witnessed many such storms in his career and was confident that the Derbyshire could easily face the typhoon. At that point, a safe harbor was also quite far away, so fighting the storm was the only option left. The captain reduced the speed and turned the ship slightly towards the waves. Ships usually do this during storms to maintain stability. At the same time, the captain also sent an emergency message in which he informed about the situation and sent the ship's current location, but the fury of the storm kept increasing. The waves had risen to more than 10 meters high, some were as long as the Derbyshire itself. With a length of 1,000 feet, the Derbyshire was even longer and wider than the Titanic, and its height was equal to a 16-story building. This was no ordinary ship, it was a state-of-the-art fortress of steel, built specifically to withstand the world's most terrifying sea, and that's exactly why, for the captain, it was a state-of-the-art steel fortress built specifically to face off against the world's most fearsome sea, and that's why, for the captain, Typhoon Orchid just seemed like another routine event. But in the dark depths of the ocean, something was about to happen that no one could have ever imagined. That very night, 2 other ships were also battling the typhoon, but by the next morning, both of those ships had safely reached port. But there was no trace or wreckage of the MV Derbyshire. This steel fortress suddenly vanished without a single sign. For the next 20 years, the world could not understand what had really happened that night. The steel fortress MV Derbyshire vanished without a trace. For 20 years, its fate remained a mystery. On September 9th, 1980, the ship sent its last radio message. No distress call followed, only silence remained. A dreadful silence. Even the ship's owners did not report it missing. Perhaps they believed that it was just a loss of radio contact and that the Derbyshire would reappear somewhere along the coast. But as the days passed, there was still no news of the Derbyshire. On September 15th, for the first time, concern was raised about the ship's disappearance. An international search mission was launched. Helicopters, airplanes, naval ships all scoured the ocean's surface for the Derbyshire. They searched the coordinates, but no wreckage was found. After 6 days, the search was called off. Authorities concluded the sea swallowed it without investigation. The case and news coverage of the MV Derbyshire vanished just as quickly. The families of the victims could not accept this explanation. They felt as if something was being deliberately hidden. The MV Derbyshire was a steel Derbyshire, 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 Derbyshire. The families of the crew sent several requests, but they were only told that there was nothing to investigate. The families of the victims could not accept this explanation. They felt as if something was being deliberately hidden. The MV Derbyshire was a steel giant built just 4 years earlier at Britain's famous Swan Hunter shipyard, an enormous ship with a capacity of over 150,000 tons. It could carry cargo and was capable of hauling 4 times more load than ships from 20 years earlier. But this time, it wasn't just about size. The design was new as well, and the Derbyshire was an OBO carrier. This was a modern ship that could carry oil on one side and iron ore on the other, fully loaded. The biggest advantage of this was reducing shipping costs, and for this reason, it was almost never empty. If it unloaded oil, it would carry iron ore back. In other words, the ship would always keep running and keep generating profit for the company. Compared to traditional ships, the MV Derbyshire could generate up to 30% more revenue. It was counted among the bridge-class ships, and at that time, only 6 such ships were available in the entire world. It was built by the renowned British shipyard Swan Hunter. At that time, the company was facing significant challenges because they were competing with Japanese and South Korean shipyards that were building the same ships. They were building them cheaper and much faster. Swan Hunter, which was once the undisputed king of the world's shipbuilding industry, was now under a lot of pressure because of Japanese and South Korean companies. They started cutting costs, and perhaps this is where the secret behind the sinking of the MV Derbyshire was hidden. After this tragedy, many homes were plunged into darkness, but there was one person for whom this was not just a loss, but became a mission. Peter Ridyard had lost his young son on the Derbyshire. But Peter was not just a father, he was also an experienced ship surveyor who had spent his life analyzing the sea and ships. When Peter took matters into his own hands, he uncovered a shocking truth. In 1982, just 18 months after the disappearance of the Derbyshire, another bridge-class ship named Tyne Bridge was battling storms in the North Sea when suddenly cracks began to appear in the steel at the front of the ship's superstructure. The captain immediately ordered an evacuation, and the crew was airlifted to safety. Saving the ship in this accident was nothing short of a miracle, perhaps because nature itself wanted the truth to come out this time. When Peter thoroughly inspected the ship, he discovered that cracks had developed on a section of the ship's front side. After reading some more documents, he found out that not only this ship but every bridge-class ship had developed cracks, and these cracks were appearing in the exact same spot. These ships were then being quietly called into ports for repairs. But that wasn't all. Peter uncovered something even more astonishing. These ships were not built according to the original design plans. Some parts had been constructed differently from the original design in a rush. Peter now had evidence that could possibly reopen the investigation into the MV Derbyshire. Peter gathered all this evidence and sent it to the Department of Transportation, but instead of taking any action, they simply stated that a proper investigation into the sinking of the Derbyshire had already been conducted and there were no plans for a new inquiry. The authorities turned a deaf ear, but the families of the deceased found their voice. In 1984, they formed the Derbyshire Family Association with only one goal: to uncover the truth no matter what. In November 1986, another bridge-class ship named Kowloon Bridge ran aground near the coast of Ireland due to cracks that had developed in the sea. While crossing the rough Atlantic Ocean, its hull, which had already been weakened, could not withstand the pounding of the waves. Kowloon Bridge was the last of the 6 bridge-class ships in which the specific repair work that Peter had found in the other ships had not been carried out. But this time, the British government did not remain silent and decided to open a new investigation. Peter and the other families saw a ray of hope. Over the next 6 months, various experts gave their opinions in this investigation. Some blamed the design while others blamed the sea. But in this investigation, none of Peter's evidence was given any attention. The evidence he had, which directly pointed to structural failure, was cleverly suppressed. The investigation report stated that no evidence of structural failure was found in the MV Derbyshire or other bridge-class ships. The Derbyshire was just another ship that fell victim to the waves of the sea. For the families who had been fighting this battle for years, this report was nothing less than a slap in the face. After the second investigation, the family's spirits were beginning to break. They insisted that the secret of the Derbyshire was not hidden in the sea, but within the system itself. But these families never gave up hope. In 1994, a private investigation team was formed in collaboration with the International Transport Workers Federation. Everyone shared the expenses of this mission, and a plan was made to search for the MV Derbyshire in the sea after 14 years. Amazingly, within just 23 hours, the Derbyshire was found in one piece 4 kilometers below the surface of the sea. This was truly a huge achievement, but to unravel this mystery, every part of the ship was photographed underwater, and the investigation continued for the next 6 years. After 6 years, the investigation report revealed the whole truth. It was discovered that at the very front of the ship there is a storage area called the bosun's store. This store contains important deck maintenance equipment such as ropes, tools, chains, and so on. That night, during the storm, when the MV Derbyshire was rocking in the waves, the door of the bosun's store, which had not been built according to the original design, suddenly broke and water started flooding in. Because thousands of gallons of water were stored in the bosun's store, the front part of the ship became heavy and the bow sank further into the water. Now the waves were hitting the hull with even more force, causing the ventilators to break and water to enter the machinery room. The bow of the Derbyshire tilted even more, and then, with one large wave, the hatch cover of a container as big as a tennis court, where iron ore was stored, also broke. Now, water started entering the first container as well. As a result, the front part sank even further, and before long, all the containers went underwater one by one. Then, the Derbyshire, which was Britain's largest vessel, disappeared into the darkness of the Pacific Ocean. When the bow sank further, dragging all containers underwater. Britain's largest vessel, the Derbyshire, vanished into the Pacific. The investigation revealed all bridge-class ships had cracks near the bosun's store and their hatch covers were substandard and fragile. In the beginning, the families thought that perhaps there was a structural failure in the ship, but the investigation revealed that there was no major design fault. Instead, it was due to small oversights that this great steel fortress sank. They had not been built. Families first suspected a structural failure, but no major design fault was found. Small oversights sank the steel fortress. In the 1970s, frequent sinkings were treated as a mere numbers game by authorities, yet the Derbyshire families launched a private inquiry. Derbyshire's tragedy forced global safety reforms still used today while resting 4 kilometers deep. Thanks for your comments. See you in the next one.